The Short Stories of Guy de Maupassant, an introduction. Henri René Albert Guy de Maupassant was born on 5th of August 1850 near Dieppe. Many have hailed Maupassant as the father of the modern short story, and with a canon of perhaps 300 to his name, many of which are superlative examples of the art, it's easy to understand why. Many were written quickly for money for the many publications looking for content with a recognizable name attached, and Maupassant seemed happy to provide them. Prolific and with a business sense lacking in most writers, he soon became wealthy and travelled, seeming to prefer his own company, to gather more experiences and ideas. His narratives and structures are tight and lucid, and his characters easily recognizable. There is a supernatural element to many of his stories, but it is yet another example of how he used this to bring into focus the worries and problems of the characters. As well as his short stories, he also wrote 6 novels, 3 travel books, and a poetry volume. On the 2nd of January 1892, Maupassant tried to commit suicide by cutting his throat and was committed to the private asylum where he died on the 6th of July 1893 at the age of 42.
The Maison Tellier by Guy de Maupassant. They went there every evening about 11 o'clock, just as they would go to the club. 6 or 8 of them, always the same set. Not fast men, but respectable tradesmen and young men in government or some other employ, and they would drink their chartreuse and laugh with the girls, or else talk seriously with Madame Tellier, who everybody respected, and then they would go home at 12 o'clock. The younger men would sometimes stay later. It was a small, comfortable house painted yellow at the corner of a street behind St. Etienne's church, and from the windows one could see the docks full of ships being unloaded, the big salt marsh, and rising beyond it, the Virgin's Hall with its old grey chapel. Madame Tellier, who came of a respectable family of peasant proprietors in the department of the Eure, had taken up her profession just as she would have become a milliner or dressmaker. The prejudice which is so violent and deeply rooted in large towns does not exist in the country places in Normandy. The peasant says, "It's a paying business," and he sends his daughter to keep an establishment of this character just as he would send her to keep a girls' school. She had inherited the house from an old uncle to whom it had belonged. Monsieur and Madame Tellier, who had formerly been innkeepers near Yvetot, had immediately sold their house as they thought that the business at Fécamp was more profitable. And they arrived one fine morning to assume the direction of the enterprise, which was declining on account of the absence of the proprietors. They were good people enough in their way, and soon made themselves liked by their staff and their neighbours. Monsieur died of apoplexy 2 years later, for as the new place kept him in idleness and without any exercise, he had grown excessively stout, and his health had suffered. Since she had been a widow, all the frequenters of the establishment made much of her, but people said that personally she was quite virtuous, and even the girls in the house could not discover anything against her. She was tall, stout, and affable, and her complexion, which had become pale in the dimness of her house, the shutters of which were scarcely ever opened, shone as if it had been varnished. She had a fringe of curly false hair, which gave her a juvenile look that contrasted strongly with the ripeness of her figure. She was always smiling and cheerful, and was fond of a joke, but there was a shade of reserve about her which her occupation had not quite made her lose. Coarse words always shocked her, and when any young fellow who had been badly brought up called her establishment a hard name, she was angry and disgusted. In a word, she had a refined mind, and although she treated her women as friends, yet she very frequently used to say that she and they were not made of the same stuff. Sometimes during the week she would hire a carriage and take some of her girls into the country, where they used to enjoy themselves on the grass by the side of the little river. They were like a lot of girls let out from school, and would run races and play childish games. They had a cold dinner on the grass and drank cider, and went home at night with a delicious feeling of fatigue, and in the carriage they kissed Madame Tellier as their kind mother, who was full of goodness and complaisance. The
Sample complete. Ready to continue?